Israel has ordered a complete siege of Gaza following this weekend's deadly attacks. Hamas launched the surprise attacks early Saturday morning. The fighting has killed at least 1,200 people on both sides. That number is expected to climb significantly. The U.S. has confirmed at least 9 of those deaths were U.S. citizens. Israel says it has claimed control of the southern part of the country. It has imposed a total blockade of Gaza. Both sides have fired new rockets today. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said its response to the unprecedented attack will change the Middle East. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan on Sunday about the best path forward for both Israelis and Palestinians.
And there are really two paths before the region. There's the path of greater integration, greater stability, including, critically, making sure that Israelis and Palestinians resolve their differences. Right. Or there's the path of terror that Hamas is engaged on that has not improved the lives of a single person. On the contrary, it's destroyed lives, including Palestinian lives.
CBS News foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab joins us now from Tel Aviv, Israel. Imtiaz, what's the situation where you are?
Lilia, good to be with you. Well, we're here in Tel Aviv, which of course is, about an hour's drive or so from the border with Gaza, which is really where the tension is. And when I say tension, I mean it is sky high. We know that Israeli forces are mobilizing along the border perimeter with Gaza, of course, that perimeter in which Hamas fighters managed to break through in 6 different areas to carry out this catastrophic attack on Israel. But throughout the day, we understand that, or rather over the last 24 hours, Israel has carried out around 500 airstrikes in Gaza alone. 500 airstrikes, while Hamas has been firing rockets into Israel, most of which have largely been intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome. But really, it just underscores the concern here that the situation here is only going to spiral into even more violence and chaos. We've heard from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that there is a very strong likelihood that Israeli forces will carry out a ground offensive inside Gaza. What does that mean? The potential that we could see Israeli soldiers in tanks, in jeeps, going inside Gaza in order to carry out what will very likely be a very bloody and potentially costly war for not only Israel, but more importantly for Hamas, who has carried out this horrific attack inside Israel. Lilia.
Deeply concerning, just the escalation of the conflict. So one of the first targets of Hamas's attack was, of course, that music festival in Israel over the weekend that we've seen so many devastating images from. So far, more than 260 deaths were reported from that event alone. I know that you spoke with some survivors. What did they tell you?
Yeah, Lily, it's really hard to put into words just the horror that was inflicted on this music festival, which billed itself as celebrating love and friendship. And it turned into a massacre. As you said, 260 people were killed there. Their remains scattered across this festival site. The images are frankly gruesome and terrifying. In fact, there are images, drone images, in which you can see the cars that have been abandoned by those who are attending, many of them riddled with bullets. And as you rightly say, we were able to speak to some of those people who managed to escape with just their lives. In fact, we spoke to a young man, just 22 years old. His name was Gal Levy. He was shot in the legs, shot in the knees by Hamas fighters. He thought he was going to die there, but he was rescued and was taken to a hospital in central Israel. He doesn't know if he's going to walk again, but he did say this, that he was angry. He feels like he was left there to die and wants to understand how something like this could have happened, a question so many Israelis are asking. Lilia.
That was such a powerful interview I saw this morning on CBS Mornings. Let me ask you something, Imtiaz. Up until this weekend, Israel's government was divided, and the people in Israel were divided over those judicial reforms. You know, as we try to figure out the timing and what led to these attacks, one must wonder whether Hamas is taking advantage of a politically divided Israel and how now the country seems to have come together. How has the attack unified the Knesset and people on the ground?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, Lilia, which is to sort of try to marry the horrors of what happened in the early hours of Saturday to the political state of Israel in this moment. As you rightly point out, this is a country which has been gripped by protests as thousands of Israelis took to the streets every single week and protested against the government's plan to overhaul the judiciary, something they said would essentially upend this country's democracy. Israel did not feel any more divided. And now we have this attack in this country, from what we're seeing and from what we're hearing, can't seem more united, where people have put aside their political differences and said, we need to come back together as a nation and try to understand, A, what happened, but in their view, to prevent what happened from ever happening again. Now, whether it was Hamas cynically exploiting this moment, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. We have to really kind of consider what just happened here. Hamas, which is inside the Gaza Strip, which is blockaded by Egypt, blockaded by Israel, which is surveillance, scrutinized in a way that few other places are in the world, and yet Israeli intelligence did not have any inkling that something like this could happen. U.S. intelligence, Egyptian intelligence, which again shares a border, no intelligence agency around the world, as far as we knew, had any idea that something like this was coming, and yet Hamas was able to achieve the unthinkable. And Israel, while it comes together, needs to understand the failings that led to that. Lilia.
And it seems to me, from what officials are saying there and here, they keep saying, you know, hindsight's 2020. There will be a time to evaluate that, but these questions are crucial. Imtiaz, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lilia.